We're in the French Quarter of New Orleans today. This place has so much history and I absolutely love it. This is my go-to place for doing photo shoots. Today we're going to concentrate mainly on why I choose 85mm. So we're going to compare it to all different lenses and I'm going to show you exactly the differences between one focal length and the next. The reason it's very important to choose a lens and a lens that works for you is it gives you a signature look to your framing. For me, 85 is giving me those really tight 3/4 body portraits, or it's giving me those headshots. My signature style is not just my locations, colors, lighting, it's also my framing. If I were to shoot with a wider lens, I would have to stand a lot closer to her to get that framing. One, she won't feel comfortable if I'm standing really close up in her face with a lens. And number two, my depth of field will not be nearly as great as my 85. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and choose a couple different focal lengths and I'm going to compare them to each other so you could see how they look. So the first issue I find when shooting with the 50, which I have now, is that I'm getting a lot of distortion when I come in to get that signature framing that I usually have. Another issue is that I have to stand so close to her, and I doubt it feels comfortable when you have a camera in a person's face like that. So I find myself taking a few steps back. Now, I love the way these pictures are coming out, but it's a lot wider than I like. But I want to go ahead and choose something a lot wider like the 24-70 to show you just how wide those pictures can get and why I try staying away from it for portraits. We have our 24-70 now. I'm going to be taking a few shots. They're going to be pretty wide. Now, these could be used for portraits, but I usually consider these more of like a landscape lens. So there are times where you really want to include the environment. Say you have a very beautiful environment and you want to include it in the picture. So I would call it a landscape, and then you happen to turn into a portrait by having a person in it. So there are times that you want to use the 24-70, but if you want those tight portraits, going 24 or 50 is far too wide. So I'm going to take a few shots at the wider ranges between 24 and 50. What really stands out to me is that everything is completely distorted right now. Everything is long and stretched out. And if I want a tighter portrait, then I'm going to have to come in all the way over here. And this is far too wide. I can't even recognize her in this picture. So let's go ahead and I'm going to back away, because at 24, really up close, you're going to be far too distorted. There's two problems that really stand out at me. First of all is that she's so small and the environment is just taking over the portrait. It's not about her, it's more about the background. The second thing is that she kind of blends into the background because we barely have any depth of field all the way at 24mm. So for 97% of my work, I do not go anywhere wider than 50mm. Now that we could see clearly why I don't like shooting wider than 85 or 50, I'm going to go ahead and pull out my 70-200 and show you the reason why I try staying away from that focal length as well. We have our 70-200 now. The first thing that stands out is this thing weighs more than me. The next thing is that at 200, I'm going to show you how far I have to go. I have to go all the way down here to get that framing I like that I normally use with my 85. Now that's at 200mm, so I could zoom all the way to 85 and shoot at 85. But why would I pay a few $100s more for the 70-200 to have more weight, only be able to go down to 2.8, and then stand this far away if I want to get the same depth of field at 200 that I would be getting with my 85? The 70-200 is a great lens. The focus is absolutely fast. It's tack sharp at all apertures, but it weighs a lot. You're not able to go down to 1.4, And also, if I want to get that depth of field, I have to stand really far away from my subject. And by standing really far from my subject, it's much harder for me to direct her from all the way down here. Whereas with my 85, I would be at a very comfortable distance from her, and I'd be able to communicate with her from here. The backgrounds are being blurred out enough at 200 millimeters, but it's flattening her features and I'm standing too far away. The 7200 also only goes down to 2.8, and that just isn't shallow enough for me to blur out my backgrounds. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull out my 85 and change the aperture settings so you could see how that affects the background and how it could take a very distracting background and turn it into a creamed out, blurred out background that just makes my subjects pop